And we are back. We're live. Come on, pop up. There we go. Back with another stream today. Training camp day. What is it? Day 8. Nice. More interesting things popping up. Talking about specific players. Also different little things to go over. I feel like when some of the maybe the beat reporters have said things about like certain players and what the depth chart is looking like. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Let me check. Think. Okay. There, I just hopefully the audio is good. I think it was a little low, so should be fixed by now. But yeah, I'm gonna go through some of Wingfield's notes, go through what some of the other beat reporters said, some of the videos we've seen coming out of the practice. Because some guys definitely shine today. It looked like it was a defensively dominated day. Defense showed up, use of 3 safety sets. Weaver throwing a lot of different things at the offense, so that's nice to see. Some quick 1v1 notes. Oh, I know Braylon Sanders. I saw a lot about Braylon Sanders today, interestingly enough. That he was looking very good, made multiple plays during one-on-ones. Not a player I expect to make the roster, but I mean, if he shows out, definitely could help him make the practice squad because he has made it in the past couple years. Jason Maitre got another pick. That's twice in 2 days. Chop Robinson looking good again. Chop has been mentioned so much. It feels like even I think what Weaver talked about him before practice today was talking about different players, but he said Chop Robinson has been as advertised. So those are some nice positives to see. Also, camp today, defense dominated. Okay, yeah. Anything else that you saw out there, Tyler? But yeah, it definitely sounds like a defensive dominated day. I know Tua was in the orange jersey on the Ox. Those are things happen out there, but getting into some of the team set. First rubber team was quite the tone setter. Ramsey takes on Aaron Brewer. Johnny lowers his shoulder. David Long comes over and puts a hit on him. Little chippy to start. Raheem Mostert bangs on the inside with a nice lane from Keon Smith. But Javon Holland caused a fumble, which pretty tough to do in like team drills when you're not full on tackling. Bell gets a pressure that forces Tua off his spot. Tua scrambles for a short gain. And Tyreek passed the defense, so the pressure probably saved a long touchdown. Now, Quinton Bell. Talking about Quinton Bell because he's probably been the biggest talk of training camp. I feel like a lot of people talking about him, surprises, different things. I think even Omar Kelly said that he thinks Quinton Bell is going to start at edge, which is kind of crazy if that's the case. Like obviously with the injuries. And Quinton Bell is 28 years old, so he's put in the NFL for a few seasons now. Played in like 9 NFL games, and coming out of college, like he was a freak athlete, like insane numbers. And he was more of a tweener. Like they didn't know if he was going to play edge, play off-ball linebacker. I have some of his numbers pulled up here. He ran like a 4.38 40, 41.5 inch vert. Some other very insane reps for a guy who weighs around 240-ish. But he's playing more edge. You're going to be more of an edge guy. There was talks of him being a little bit of that off-ball edge tweener type, and it does make sense that maybe he's finally finding his footing within this new system because that Weaver defense does value athleticism a lot at the edge position. It gets them in good spots. So I think people have been high on him. Like he was a guy that's fighting for a roster spot, and I would say was on the outside of it. But with how he's looking so far in training camp. There's very little film on him, so I don't have like a strong opinion on him yet. I'm waiting to see him in preseason because I think that edge spot. There's a couple edge spots that are locked up, and with injury, I think a couple guys could potentially fight for spots, and a lot of them have been really impressive throughout camp. Even like Grayson Murphy, Zeke Vandenberg, who's like a tweener as well. But Quinton Bell, he played even wide receiver in college. Like the athleticism is there, and if he finally puts it all together, I'm excited to see him get that action because if he shows out at least a little bit in preseason, he'll probably lock some of that spots up, but he's been an absolute menace. A guy that will at least make the practice squad for sure, and looks like he's really setting himself up. And the reason I feel confident that he's gonna really like start to make the roster is because it's not even only just like the beat reporters hyping people up, because sometimes that happens where like the beat hypes people up and it just doesn't end up translating, or and then but it's the players and the coaches are mentioning them in interviews when just like not even asked about them specifically at times, just like mentioning players' names is very important. And We've seen that with like Quinton Bell, and another one is Ethan Bonner. He's been mentioned a lot by players and coaches, just getting brought up. And Ethan Bonner had a good day from what I know today. And I feel like with the injury with Cam Smith, Ethan Bonner's a guy that was kind of on the, like 50-50. He was on the roster bubble potentially, but I feel strongly he's going to make it now, like pretty strongly, and potentially even see playing time, which is crazy. Ramsey played everywhere. He really will be our chess piece / X Factor that gets moved around. Love that. If you guys watch any of my videos, you know I love that. I want Ramsey to be that guy. Sarah Neal looked pretty good in second team reps. Got beat. Yeah, I think let me see. I'm pretty sure I found there's a video of Malik beating. Yeah, right here. Malik's another one that we'll talk about in a second. But yeah, beating him one-on-one. It's nice. I like seeing Malik beat someone on a vertical route, especially like where he would be aligned on the outside. Good tracking, and I feel like I heard positive things about Malik today too from what I read on Twitter, which is good because we'll talk about that a little bit later once we get to more of the Malik Washington stuff. But it looks like some people, like some of the beat reporters, were mentioning that the top five, you have your top three, and then the next two are Craig Kraft and Barrios, and they don't even know if Malik would make the team, which I think that'd be crazy. If the Dolphins cut Malik Washington, I think that would be really, really dumb, personally. I think that'd be one of the worst moves they could make. That would definitely be a little discouraging, so hopefully they don't do that. What else do you say? All the safety seemed impressive, got to the right spots pretty quickly, like that. Yeah, I agree, Brian. Definitely, they value. If you've ever watched the Ravens defense and like the things they do, especially up front, they really do value athleticism. And the guys they've taken in the past are like super athletes, especially in like the defensive front. Like the I think it was Jason Owe, but I think he's Odafe Owe now. So yeah, Owe was an example of that, and they just know how to get the most out of those guys who maybe are a little bit raw but are super athletic. They put them in the right spots, allow them to use that stuff to their advantage, and hopefully they get the same thing out of Bonner. He says. Bonner, I remember he said in the interview not too long ago saying like they're going to be playing more zone, and he feels pretty comfortable with that. So yeah, and yeah, Chop will definitely see playing time. It's just how much playing time will he see early at those early run defense reps. Let's see, where did I stop? Oh yeah, there. Yeah, Braylon Sanders getting mentioned again. This time in team, looks like him and Sanders had a solid week. That's interesting. Not a guy that I'm really looking at strongly, but if he puts together, more solid reps and then does, some things in preseason, I could see maybe a practice squad spot for him. And you never know with practice squad guys; they always end up getting elevated. A lot of them see playing time at some point. Patrick Paul and Julian Hill wipe out the defensive edge and spring Jeff Wilson to a run of 10 before first contact. That sounds dangerous because I know I've heard Paul has looked better, and definitely people are feeling more strongly about him. Still a lot of things to work at. But with Julian Hill and Patrick Paul, Julian Hill is super physical, and Patrick Paul has got some great size to him. So don't want to be the guys that have to hold up against them, I am dropping frames a little bit, so hopefully it's not too laggy. Receivers had a couple of drops. Passing game as a whole just looked a little out of rhythm. But defense was really physical from the first play of 11s. Yeah. I feel like defense typically does dominate practices. They dominated practices for the most part last year too, but then the offense was still definitely the stronger part at the start of the season. So it doesn't really concern me when it comes to the offense. Yeah, my frames are dropping. Let me close Discord. See if that helps. Jalen Wright has another nice run where he hits the hole at full speed in the second level before first contact. Love hearing Jalen Wright hitting things at full speed. We've talked about that, him just being confident, and sometimes rookies can be a little indecisive. So being decisive, especially with his physical ability, is very important. Ramsey and Fuller take away some deep routes to Waddle and Reek. Next play, Fuller's all over the inbreaker. Next play is the force defender forces a wide run inside. Love that. Sounds like Kendall Fuller is playing well when he's been out. Kendall Fuller is a guy that I have pretty strong confidence in, and will be better for the second corner spot behind Ramsey. Let's see. Ooh, flashbang. Defense showed a variety of coverages and blitz packages. Yeah, we should see more versatility. That's definitely a big thing where they like to show a bunch of different looks pre-snap. Like a lot of the calls end up being pretty, normal, pretty basic, but a lot of the stuff pre-snap really sells that it can be like a bunch of different things. Kamara gets upfield on a Narucci block and forces Wilson back on his track, stringing it out the sideline for no gain. Like hearing that he's setting the edge, that's some good stuff too. Cyrus Neal getting involved in the backfield. Hearing positive things about Neal would be definitely to make the roster. Definitely feel pretty confident with him going in. More on Quinton Bell. Quinton Bell crosses his face on Ryan Hayes and forces Skylar to flee. Channing Tindall beats him to the edge and forces throwaway. Tindall's been getting more and more mentions, so that's good. Definitely an eye to keep on during the preseason because I don't think Tindall's a lock to make the roster, and he really has to show out if he wants to, prove himself. But Quinton Bell, man, definitely the biggest surprise so far because usually you don't see like these late breakouts with these players like this because he's been in the league for some time now, 28 years old, was just known as an athlete, super athlete, raw freak type of player coming out, but just never developed. It was always like, do we play him at edge? Do we play him at linebacker? And it seems like he signed, because I remember when I first heard about him last season, he was on the practice squad and he was playing the Crosby role during Hard Knocks, right? They showed that he was like the guy that they put at Max Crosby because he was a freak athlete. And like he was in the jersey that identified where Crosby was to prepare the team. So if he develops, I feel like it's a cool story, and there's obviously a lot of talent there. If he's putting it all together, that's really, really big, especially with the edge injuries that the team has. What's Gucci? Sealer making a play, always nice. Tua finds Waddle for a pickup of 20 over the middle between a triangle defenders. I mean, that's classic the Dolphins offense, pretty much. they love to hit in that 18 to 20 yard range and like in between the triangles. Seemed like it was a pretty physical day. Durham Smythe has a pancake off the edge. Ramsey and Long beat blocks to blow up a wide Mostert run. Those are some of the more physical players on the team. Jalen Wright hits the second level and drops the shoulder. Marcus May is there, but he gave about 5 yards of ground before Wright actually slowed down. Simulated tackle. He hits the line with conviction every time he gets it, and there's a runway. As I've said, conviction. I love the words that Wingfield's using here because when Jalen Wright is hitting things hard, that makes me excited because he has the burst, he has the speed, he has the lateral quickness, he has good size, play strength, contact balance. The only questions I had about him coming out were that scheme that he was in at Tennessee. It was not a very good scheme that translates to the next level. He's not going to see some of those looks, those boxes. So if he's seeing things quickly as a rookie, that makes me feel like he can see playing time pretty quickly. So that's good. Coverage has been fantastic today. Safeties are seeing it and playing fast. I think that's pretty much what Tyler said earlier in the chat. Kidder Code does a good job staying in phase on Waddle and preventing him from head whip to get back outside on a deep shot from Tua that falls incomplete. That's good. I like to hear that the coverage is doing good because I'm not too worried about the offense when it comes to like receivers and them getting covered because we have two of the toughest receivers in the league to cover. So if they're covering good against them, that tells me some good schematic things are happening. And I do like that the offense gets to practice versus style of defense, that Raven style of defense, because it was the one that really gave the Dolphins struggles last year and really given that Shanahan tree troubles for a while. So hopefully they can build off that and learn and definitely better themselves too, because it seems like that style defense just has that advantage versus this scheme. And definitely the safeties. I think we saw them doing like 3 safety sets in some videos that were posted. That's nice. I'm excited to see how they use everyone at safety, like where Holland will end up playing Poyer, Marcus May, because they all have experience kind of playing all over the secondary when it comes to like strong, free, down in the box, some playing times in the slot too. And it'll be interesting to see how that ends up, how those guys end up getting those usage. Let's see. Kamara draws a hold on a Keon Smith. Quickness forced Keon to grab some jersey. Looks like Kamara had some nice penetration disruption today. Feels like the edges, man, have just been, like all of them have had good positives. And, maybe that's a scheme thing and we'll get to see them in action. for preseason. Edge is one of the positions I will be looking at pretty closely. I think when the preseason rolls around, and we'll talk about it, I'm going to be looking at tight ends, the tight end group, the D-line group, the backups specifically to see who fights for those spots. And then the edges, I feel like, is becoming a pretty interesting battle too, and who could potentially even see playing time. Jonnu had a nice little 8 to 10 yard hit shot that he seemed like he had a broken tackle and got a bunch of yak. Yeah, I'm excited to see how Jonnu looks in this offense when the season starts. I don't know how much of the first team offense we're going to see throughout the preseason. I doubt we see them really at all in the first game. The second game, maybe we see like a drive, but I feel like at this point, I don't think you need to force Tua to be out there. Like we saw him in preseason last year. Like what are they going to really gain? From this is their third year in the offense. What are they really going to gain from getting like 1 or 2 drives in the preseason? I don't think they should risk injury with those guys. Seems like the defensive scheme is forcing Tua off his first read quickly. Yeah, that's definitely. I mean, I think that's a good thing for practice, honestly, because the Dolphins are obviously very good on the first read, and it is something they do need to work on. And I think it's something they've definitely been practicing on. It is, as you said, a Tua and a McDaniel thing too. I think offensive scheme can improve when it comes to that kind of stuff. Braylon Sanders catching everything. Does he got a chance at wide receiver 5? Yeah, it seemed like Braylon Sanders kind of shined today. I don't think so. When it comes, I think unless there's injuries, I don't see Sanders making the roster personally. I think if he keeps continuing to look good in like training camp like this, though, he could be a practice squad guy. But I feel like he'd have to really shine. Like he'd have to like go crazy in preseason, I think, to make the roster. But I think there's a good chance for a practice squad from him. Let's see. Patrick McMorris had a pick. I feel like it's one of the first times I've really heard of Patrick McMorris's name, who was a 6th round pick. Was really like the only day 3 pick that didn't really excite me personally out of the day 3 guys, because I really liked Jalen Wright, Malik Washington, Kamara, and Taj, who Taj is, now a stash for next season. But it seems like McMorris probably out of the draftees is the one most likely not to make the roster, I mean, at this point, it looks like it's literally just going to be Waddle, Tyreek, OBJ, obviously. Craycraft, reliable. He's gotten all the buzz, I feel like, as like the 4th guy. I would be shot like Malik Washington, I think. It looks like Ezukan was hurt too, so that kind of is hurting his chances to fight for it. So I feel like it's just going to be, after Craycraft, it'll be Berrios and Malik. That would be the 6. I mean, I wouldn't mind keeping someone over Berrios. I feel like you can't get rid of Malik Washington. I mean, I'm a big fan of Malik Washington. Feel like he had a good day today as well. If you cut him, he would get claimed, I feel like, very quickly. So don't want to risk that to try to get him on the practice squad. I feel like that'd be pretty foolish. And then Taj obviously isn't practicing. He's out for the season. So, and then, there's Willie Snead, Braylon Sanders. Those are names who I just think are more. Anthony Schwartz is definitely a camp body. Jaquan Burton, another UDFA. I could see like guys like Braylon making practice squad. Wingfield said, Grayson Murphy with an interesting rush move that impacts the QB looked like a Euro step. I mean, if you watch any UCLA film, Grayson Murphy, honestly, all those, there's the Murphy twins, Gabriel and Grayson, and then there was Latu. They loved hitting a Euro step. That was like one of their go-to, like the Euro step with like the cross chop, like little hop chop that they like to do. So definitely a big time move for maybe that's like all over his film. No height at wide receiver. That's why you got to keep Fortson on the roster at tight end, because he can give you, like, you don't need height at the position other than like a few different scenarios, like especially this offense. That's why like Gesicki never really, like Gesicki had like a few moments where he shined, but for the most part, like he didn't really fit within the offense. So I think having someone like Fortson at the tight end position, who's athletic and has the speed to still run within the actual system when he's not getting targeted, but then gives you some height down in the red zone if you want to give someone a jump ball at times. But yeah. What do you think of Willie Snead? I mean, I think Snead's like a camp body. If he does have, like, I wouldn't be surprised if Snead's like a practice squad guy for them, and maybe they elevate him a few times when injuries happen, because Snead does have a similarity within the scheme. Like he spent the last 2 years in San Francisco, so obviously he understands the offense, and he played all positions, which I think that they might value that because a lot of the Dolphins receivers after the first three guys, after Craycraft, because like if they keep Berrios and Malik, they're more slots. Snead could give you like reps at the outside spots if that were to happen, but I do see him more as a practice squad candidate. I don't really think he'll make the roster, but it sounds like he hasn't really shined in practice, but hasn't been bad either. So, but it's not a move that really excites me in either direction. More Waddle love, more Waddle praise. Looks like he's just been absolutely outstanding in practice. I feel like he's just been one of the guys who's been shining, especially out of everyone. What happened to Taj? He was placed on the injury reserve list, and that I think that means he's out for season. So I think they're doing that. They did that just so they probably thought with their numbers at receiver he wasn't going to make the roster anyways. He was injured, and they're just thinking well, now let's keep him stashed, even if it's not a year-ending injury. They're looking to keep him stashed for next year. They did the same thing with Zeke Vandenberg last year, who didn't play the whole year. He was on an injury list, and now he's back at this training camp. And Vandenberg's looked pretty decent too. Another guy who I've heard his name a lot. I don't know I don't think he makes the roster, but he's another guy who could stick around on practice squad. Weaver dials up a blitz that heats up Tua, throws to Tyreek, and Elijah Campbell undercuts it but drops the pick. Love seeing the blitzes being brought and DBs playing behind it, understanding the calls, being hey, when the blitz is coming, the ball is expected to come out quicker. Play a little more flat-footed, ready to break on things. More quick decision-making from Skylar. Yeah, that's another thing. I feel like people have been talking about the QB2 battles is really up for grabs between Skylar and Mike White. I don't really have a dog in that fight. Whoever wins that battle, give it to them. I don't really have strong feelings about either of them, but it does seem like Skylar is playing his best training camp so far. So we'll see how that translates into preseason success between him and White. Because, either way, I think if Tua's not playing, your chances of winning a Super Bowl go down greatly. You're not going to win without him in this offense, so I'm not too worried about it. But it will be interesting to see who kind of wins that battle. Jonathan Harris sack. I feel like this is the first time I've heard about Jonathan Harris pretty much all training camp, and he's one of the guys fighting for the D tackle spots. But he's more looking on the outside right now. More Maitre love. Jason Maitre, the guy that was signed late as a UDFA after their initial rookie camp. But yeah. Seems like he's making some noise. He had a nice backfield loss on a Jalen Wright carry. So that's a name I'll be watching in the preseason because I barely saw college film on Maitre. I watched a little bit, but there wasn't enough for me to make a film breakdown on it because I'm he's not going to probably not going to make the roster. But then, if he keeps shining and shines in the preseason, he's, you got to give him a look. Is Ogba going to have his hand in the dirt, stand up, or both? Well, realistically, it will be both. But I would say last year it was majority play stand up because that's what was the nature of the defense. I think this year it's going to be the opposite. They do multiple fronts in Weaver's defense, but if you go back and watch, a lot of times they had one of the guys standing up on the edge and the other guy with a hand in the dirt. So I think Ogba could see the Clowney role. They like to have Clowney hand in the dirt a lot, and then every once in a while he would stand up. So I think they will be like that. He'll be more hand in the dirt, and then with a little bit of standing up, which I think that's better for him. What happened to Ezukama? I don't think his injury has been disclosed yet, but he's been injured a couple of days. That's why I think they brought in Willie Snead. They practiced a lot of receivers. That's why I think his injury could be a little more serious, which, kind of that obviously sucks for him. We'll see how serious it is, but I haven't seen it disclosed unless anyone else has. Let's see. Ramsey and David Long continuing to make plays, especially in run fits. It seems like, Ramsey and David Long fit up against an inside run. We saw them make a play versus the run earlier. That just tells me, like Tyler was saying, that Ramsey's being used all over the place. If he's involved in run fits, that means he's playing in the nickel, in the slot, playing as, a big safety down in the box. that gives me hope that he is going to be used all around, and Ramsey can be a guy that fits into the run, which you don't really get to be involved in the run fits very often if you're an outside corner. Tua to Ingold converts on 3rd and 1. He put the ball in Beam's belly, which brought David Long down like a missile for a big collision. But Tua flips it out to his fullback all alone for a first down. Interesting. This is a good quote from Wingfield. He said, "Wouldn't be so sure that Cyril Neal is just a special teams guy. He's been active every day. He flies around. He hits, competes his butt off. Him and Jeff Wilson just had a collision and dapped up after the fact. And Jeff puts a fair share of DBs on the ground in the past." Lots of Neal love. I feel like the DB room, that's probably not a good sign for Cam Smith with the injuries. Like, because Cam Smith, this was his best chance to take over as the third corner. With obviously you have Ramsey and Fuller up top, but I feel like I haven't heard a lot about Needham. I know Needham hasn't played like bad, but I haven't heard a ton of encouraging things either. Like nothing crazy, not super productive, active. But I've heard a lot of good things about Kohu. Heard a lot of good things about Neal. I've heard a lot of good things about Ethan Bonner. And honestly, there's playing time up for grabs between those guys and Cam Smith when he comes back healthy. And I honestly think out of those guys I just named, those are probably the corners that make the team. Everyone else is kind of outside looking in. We've heard some good mentions from Maitrey and Storm Duck, but those are probably practice squad candidates. How is Chop playing? Apparently Chop's been playing amazing. Like he's been one of the standouts of camp. Looks very explosive. I feel like his name has been mentioned multiple times every day, making sacks. There's just been questions about how good can he set the edge versus the run. But I feel very confident about Chop as a pass rusher early on, no matter where he's used either way. Wingfield also said, take an extra look at Rob Jones today and have been very impressed with a few things. The relationship between his hands and feet stays active and balanced when he fires his punch. He's seeing it well. Loopers, games. He's meeting them when they are shortening the runway. General tenacity just looks like a no fun matchup for defenders. Yeah, just guard. If he's not healthy, I could see Jones starting at left guard. He's just the most physical of the guards. He's the guy who has the most nasty play style out of them. Like Driscoll and Wynn are more like super great athletes that are really good at mirror matching, that type of thing, but don't have like the super nastiness play style, but they fit the scheme well. And then Eichenberg, is more on the nasty side than athletic side, but has his struggles with like play strength and he's better as a run blocker than a pass protector. But yeah. How has Tua been in terms of mobility and reproduction? From what I've heard, it seems, and we've seen the clips, it looks like Tua is moving a little bit better, which is good. It seems like he's being a little more mobile. I'm not going to say he's going to be like crazy mobile this year, but I do think we expect a little bit of more running out of him, just a little bit. But I think where the biggest thing is just his pocket mobility, being able to avoid sacks and then reset your feet, deliver. And then I think the read progression, from what I've heard, it sounds like there's a couple off throws today, a couple, good things by the defense, but overall has been his best camp, I feel like, in terms of everything, not just mobility and read progression, but it seems like this is the most confident he's being. And that makes sense going into his third season. But I don't put too much stock into the read progression stuff until we see live action, I think the mobility stuff, you can see the mobility a little bit, but the read stuff, we'll wait for some live action for that. Speaking of Tua, Wingfield said, Tua's thrown a couple of balls to the perimeter day that really caught my eye, like the one he just ripped to Jonnu Smith. 3rd and short, Jonnu breaks off a quick route, corners right underneath it, but Tua rips the fast ball high away to only where Jonnu could get it first down. Remind me of throw in 2022 versus the Rounds where he got Denzel Ward doing that. I mean, yeah, Tua, it seems like I know his mechanics are better too, because you can see the mechanics even just from the videos. That things are just a little more natural when it comes to like trying to throw, because sometimes Tua's always been a natural thrower, but it's been really natural when he has to throw with touch. Sometimes when he tries to put throw it really hard, he puts his whole body into it. So it feels like some of the fastballs are coming more naturally at it from him too. It's not like he's gained a ton of velocity and he's going to have like the strongest arm now. It just seems a little more easy and accurate in those areas. So that's a nice sign, and that's coming from working with the 3D QB guys. Nick Needham mentioned checks in with a diving PBU. He's the one. I feel like Needham's kind of on the roster bubble with a couple of guys, but wouldn't surprise me if Needham makes it because he can play pretty much every spot out there. He has experience playing nickel, corner, and safety. And then, yeah, I think the last mention was Tua threw a pick to Bonner. Ethan Bonner had a pick on a deep shot to Tyreek. There was a few different mentions of people freaking out about it, but it seemed just like it was late in the regression. It was a like a broken play, like Tua had to like scramble and then chuck it up deep. So they were already deep down the field, and then it was like a little underthrown, and then Bonner picked it off. It sounded like what happened. How about the Big J package of Jonnu, Julian, Jody, Jeff, and Jalen, right? Yeah. And then have Jalen Waddle out there for the speed. We do have a lot of J's on this team. I'm really confident for the season, but I'm worried about the big games. Yeah, I think it feels like everyone's taking... I feel like from the quotes I've seen, obviously, it's hard to know when you're not in the building, but it does seem like everyone is kind of stepping up in the leadership category, a lot of the leaders at least, and they're taking things more seriously. I know the team has the talent to win in big games, and different players stepped up in different big games. It's kind of just all putting it together. And I do think the whole big game narrative can be a little bit blown out of proportion when it comes to the Dolphins, because most teams and players kind of struggle in that kind of scenario. But yeah, that is something they do need to be better in. And we'll see how it plays out. Plus, I think sometimes situations matter too, like where it's played, the context of it, of where it's in the season. Because sometimes teams just have off games, and sometimes it comes against a bigger team. Sometimes it comes against a bad team. Because the Dolphins weren't really losing to bad teams, which most teams were, which is, I think, a positive. But yeah, those were all the notes from Wingfield. Anything else I want to talk about? I like some other stuff. Some other people were talking pretty positively, highly about Malik Washington. We talked about him earlier. And people were saying like Malik might... I feel like people were saying like it's still up for grabs whether Malik makes the roster. And I feel like, I'm going to say this now. If the Dolphins were to cut Malik Washington, I think that would be really foolish. Personally. Because he would get claimed instantly, and I feel like he just has a much higher upside and would be a better slot than like a Barrios. Looks like this was like a 3 safety setup here, so they have 3 here. Looks like they're showing like it could be, they could either roll this into deep thirds or like a Tampa 2, which it does look like Tampa 2, where the corners are playing the flat. And then this safety ends up being a middle field defender like the Mike. Kind of like seeing this different type of look. I think that might be McMorris because that's 32. So yeah, 3 safeties here. Definitely excited to see, just, interested to see how more 3 safety looks this season, because the Ravens ran it a decent amount last season. And then, yeah, there's also multiple love for Quinton Bell today, again, as we've talked about. And that guy is a freak athlete. I just don't have a strong opinion about him as a player because there's rarely any film for me to go off yet. So that's why he's one I'll be watching closely in the preseason, because I haven't seen him really play in, some years now. But yeah, I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to mention. Unless you guys have any more questions, any things you guys want to talk about, then we'll probably wrap this up pretty quickly. But another pretty solid day. Dolphins will continue to practice. And then next week we got the preseason, which I'll probably go live for. I'll probably go live during the preseason game and we can talk about the preseason game. And then we'll obviously do breakdowns on some of the players that I think are fighting for roster spots. Some of the rookies we'll get to see in first action. That type of stuff throughout the week, which will be fun. And then we'll also there'll be joint practices next week too before the actual game, which will be exciting to see the Dolphins versus some different players. I think that brings a different level of competition too, which makes things exciting. So I want to see if maybe some players stand out a little bit more against different teams too. And I'm excited to see if people show up in the preseason that maybe we haven't heard too much about in practice, because sometimes when it comes to practice, some people just aren't practice players. Some guys are game players, and we'll see if people really stand out, because I do feel like preseason is a better way of showing your ability to make the roster than a training camp is, even though they both add up a lot. Thank you, Elwood. I appreciate that. we'll keep it coming. Lots of content this season. I mean, lots of football things to do. Obviously, same thing as last season, just doing film breakdowns. I wasn't streaming last season, so we'll still do. I'll mix in the streams. Like when I don't have like a film breakdown to do, I'll do a stream. You know, whether it's like just to immediately recap the game, review it. You know, either the day it happened or the next day, and then maybe do some game previews. You know, the day before, but mostly film breakdowns. Yeah, thank you guys for watching.